What a beautiful tribute. Thank you, Jack. As Ken was on my mind this week, I thought of all the creative things he did in his life, and these are only the things I know about. He was Mr. Comedy. He would go to share his comedy and stand-up in the comedy club. He was very involved with his fishing groups and with kids fishing and such. And then his service in Unity was enormous with the youth and with board service and with the Alhambra Foundation. And he was our board member for the past 2.5, 3 years, maybe longer. So
off and on.
Off and on, yeah, throughout the decades, I think. So we just hold a little tender, if there's a tender place in your heart today for him, no, you're not alone. Yeah. So when we hear about a celebration of life service from the family, we'll be sure to announce that. I want to give a shout out to our volunteers this morning because it really does take a village to make Sunday happen. And especially when some of our regulars are gone on vacation. So I just want to give a shout out to Eileen, who did the altar this morning, and Betty set up and singing, and Harry was set up in hospitality, and Dennis and Sunshine, who did a million things this morning, set up in signs and recording and so much, and platforming so beautifully. And Denim, our person. And our bull ringers who just came forth. Mark, I saw you come up, and Patricia singing. So it really does take us saying yes to sharing our talents, sharing our gifts. And sometimes it just amazes me in the spur of the moment, people will come up and say yes. So if you'd like to be up here singing too, talk to Jack. Talk to Jack about that. Okay. So one day a group of scientists got together, and they were so proud of themselves. They had made so many scientific discoveries that they decided they no longer needed God. So they announced to God, we've made so many scientific advancements. We've even discovered how to make human life from scratch. So God, you can just go. We don't need you anymore. Well, God listened patiently and then asked, well, you can do this, huh? Just like I did with Adam. And one scientist said, sure, no problem. And God said, well, can you show me? And so one scientist bent down to grab a handful of dirt. And God said, no, get your own dirt. There is one source of creation, isn't there? And many streams of expression of that one source. So we are wrapping up our series on freedom today and looking at our power to imagine and to build and to nurture and consciously co-create with God for a richer and fuller life. Because have we all created unconsciously? Yeah, that doesn't turn out so well most of the time, does it? So we're building our ability to consciously co-create God. So who considers himself a creative person? Oh, several hands. Great. And then what do you think of when you think of creativity?
Solving problems, mostly.
Solving problems, yes, that's definitely part of it. And what gets the most attention is art, music, dance, sculpture, something very visible, and those incredible baking shows, where they make those cakes that look like things like bowling balls or tigers or buildings, castles, or whatever. Well, there's something inside of us that just is drawn to creation is drawn to beauty, right? And when we connect with it, connect with the creation, with art, with music, with dance, something happens inside. You can feel that, right? Whether we're in the act of creation or being witness to it. And so this essence of creation touches the spirit of creation inside, within us. Maybe you already experienced it this morning, with the song, with walking in and seeing the sunlight, noticing the beautiful day, a bird song, colors on someone's apparel, a smile. So the word inspiration, the original meaning is the immediate influence of God. So when we're inspired by others, it's a sacred meeting with the God in them meeting the God in us. Isn't that beautiful? The Japanese have a term called yugen, which hints to this. It's an awareness of the universe that triggers emotional responses too deep and mysterious for words. Have you had those experiences? So when inspired, our imagination gets activated and we enter into the vast realm of divine ideas where all possibilities exist. And for those of you sitting there thinking, oh no, I'm not creative. Consider this, if you're alive, you're creative. You can't help but create. You're made up to chip off the old block, creator. Made in the image and likeness of the one who gives life. So every time you solve a problem, or see humor in a situation, or a new perspective, make a meal, and by the way, there's some great cookies that I think are halfway gone. Thank you, Eileen, for making those peanut butter and chocolate chip cookies. Anytime you make something or design something, create something new. And I know you've all done this in your job, your career, in your family, at home, a creative endeavor, socially. You're being creative. That's what I love about our Summer of Fun program with the field trip. Thank you, Betty, for hosting that. And, creating connection in a new way that we haven't done before here. Yeah. So creativity can show up in many ways. And I just want to mention about creativity today with the spiritual writing workshop out at the picnic table there. Well, it's a workshop, so we'll have some writing prompts and do some writing. And we have a method we do with that's a safe, nurturing environment with writing. So I'd love to do that, and hope you can join us out there. So we get inspired.
Beginners welcome. Beginners welcome.
Yes, beginners welcome. And if you didn't bring a notebook, there are notebooks, I have pens. And even if you don't consider yourself a writer per se, but you like expressing ideas or you're curious, come out. Come out anyway. And I invite you to try it out and have fun. This is a dancer statue that I just makes me smile every time I see it. Just bliss, freedom, creation. Wow. So our right use of our imaginations can yield some wonderful things, right? Personally and collectively. We can imagine, if we have a friend who's struggling, we can imagine that friend getting some peace in their heart. If there's a situation in the family that's kind of off or fractured, we can imagine the family coming together, the healing happening. We can celebrate success before it even shows up, giving thanks in advance for the prosperity or answered prayer or healing. And we can imagine peace in places of war, healing in places of division, and bridges versus walls. We're free to create a heaven or a hell in our imaginations. Charles Fillmore, co-founder of Unity, called heaven the realm of divine ideas, as well as the adjustment of these ideas in mind, body, and humankind. So it's not just receiving the ideas, but it's aligning it with God presence, God power, pure for good, putting them into action. Because we know that ideas can be misinterpreted and put in to create not good, right? So we align with the presence for the right use of imagination and creation. So we know that all ideas exist in divine mind. That fresh, new idea that you've been praying for is already here. It's just awaiting your attention to be still and know and allow it to land. And to set aside any fear, to become available for it to land. I see any divine idea that lands is an immaculate conception that we can conceive like a seed that we water with prayer and affirmation and faith and see it grow and grow. So Jesus was fully aware of his divine direction. And you think about it, he had a very creative nature that he applied in his problem solving, mentoring, ministry, planning, relationships, and most of all, teaching. And he often taught in parables, those little simple stories that illustrate a moral or a spiritual lesson. So the one I want to share with you today comes from the book of Matthew, chapter 25, verses 14 to 30. It's the parable of the talents. Do any of you remember that story? Yeah, where it's about this landowner who's going to another country. He's going on a journey, and he summons his servants, and he says, I want you to take care of my wealth while I'm gone. And so it says, according to their abilities, he gives one man 5 talents, the second man 2 talents, and the third man 1 talent. And a talent was a form of money. In today's terms, it's worth about $4,000. So as the story goes, the man who received 5 talents went out immediately, invested it, put it into work, and doubled his money, came back with 5 more talents. The same one with the man who received 2 talents, went out, put it into action, came back with 2 plus the 2. But the third man, out of fear, went out and buried his talent. He hid the money. So when the landowner returns, there's a time of reckoning. And he has a check-in with the men. And the first 2 who had doubled their investment were praised, up and down, just praised. And then the third man who had hid the talent was chastised. And the 1 talent he had clung onto was taken from him and given to the man who had 10. So here comes a little spiritual lesson toward the end with the moral. We read, for all those who have, more will be given, and they will have an abundance. But from those who have nothing, even what they have will be taken away. So the story concludes with the fearful servant who had buried the talent was kicked out of the house, thrown into the darkness and kind of cursed by the landowner who said, you're just going out into darkness where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. That sounds a little painful. So I love this story because it's kind of a cautionary tale, you know. The talents we can see symbolically or metaphysically are our talents, our spiritual gifts, our resources, our life energy that when we put it out into the world with faith, more good, our good is multiplied, that comes back to us. And when we bury our talents out of fear, we get more to be fearful about. Right? So I bet there's some buried talents right now that we can dig up. Do any have come to your mind about maybe a gift that spiritual gift that you know that you have, but you've kind of just put it aside, let it go? Maybe it's time to dig it up. Dig it up and put it out into the world. Well, I'll share one of mine with you. I was going through, speaking of digging things up, I was going through all my papers and trying to organize and clean and declutter. And I found some poems that, and one of them just fit with what we're talking about today. And I entitled it Thought. Where silence is a selfish master of the air lies one mind, in stillness, imagining sounds not yet heard, and sights not yet seen. A state where reality is erased, and I am given another chance. I wrote that when I was 14. Never thought I would be a minister up here talking about it all those years later. So what is it for you? That thing that you love or used to love that you just kind of put aside, but it keeps kind of, trying to pop up again. Take that into prayer this week. So we create with faith or we create with fear. And we know the results we get with each. There's this man named Rob Kennedy who grew up without a father. And his father had left when he was a young boy. And, he could have held onto that pain and that chip on his shoulder for his whole life. But he decided to do something different. And he started a YouTube channel for kids called Dad, How Do I? To teach kids to do the things that he wished his dad would have taught him. I'm going to watch it because there's amazing things on it. How to change windshield wipers. He has one where he has shaving cream. He's teaching the boys how to shave. Car maintenance, mixing concrete, fishing, how to fish, and what to do with the fish afterwards. He has millions of views on his videos. And so that pain that he experienced, he had a divine idea about how to turn that into something that would feed his soul and bless others. I also came across the Social Healing Project, which was birthed 2 decades ago by Dr. Judith Thompson and James O'Day, as a way to bring people from warring countries together for forgiveness and healing. And so they hosted what they called compassion and healing dialogues with highly divisive groups in the same room in an attempt to heal wounds. Think of Israelis, Palestinians, and others. And in these sessions, the facilitators move the emphasis away from who is right and who is wrong toward who is wounded and how to heal. Think if that approach is used today. Instead of right, wrong, who is wounded and how do we heal? Charles Fillmore said the best work of our imagination, I love this, is the marvelous transformation of character. He says, imagine you are one with the principle of good and you will become truly good. To imagine oneself perfect fixes the idea of perfection in the invisible mind substance, that energy of God. And the mind forces at once begin the work of bringing forth perfection. So it all starts with an idea, right? That we can nurture and grow and have the patience to bring it into form. And you know this because I know that you've created some amazing things in your life and are still creating. We're still creating. So we all have the capacity to bring forth creations that uplift and inspire, to create a life that we love living. And you know, when someone passes that we care about or admire, don't we get a little nudge? You know, a little nudge that says, what's stopping you from doing that thing you love? If not now, when? You know, a little nudge. You know, are you willing to let go of the stress, the fatigue, the distraction, being overly busy? Are you willing to, let go of that? Are you willing to let go of worry about what you want to create as, quote, not good enough? Are you willing to let that go and live and love? Enjoy. So when we remove our blocks to our creative nature, we remove blocks that may be there with our ability to experience the presence of God. So one remedy to free our creative nature, which I'm sure that you all do, is to get outside. To get outside. Dr. Joe Dispenza had a great article. He said, in clinical studies, we have proven that 2 hours of nature sounds a day significantly reduce stress hormones and activate DNA segments known to be responsible for healing and repairing the body. 2 hours a day of nature sounds, of wind, of wave, of bird. Even I've reframed there's a lot of dogs who are in the apartment complex I live, so I've reframed that to a nature sound. Every time the dogs bark, and then they bark at each other. They're talking to each other. Nature sounds. I don't know that I'd want 2 hours straight of that, but...
No, you don't. No, honestly.
See the power of our imaginations? Another article I found fascinating. It was about the healing properties of cats purring. How many of you have a cat? Yeah, you can probably really relate to this, that the vibrational hertz, H-E-R-T-Z, was measured at from 50 to 150 on the waves. And the benefits included stress reduction, relaxation, heart health, wound healing, and more. You might want to visit one of these people with the cat. So nature is our friend to recalibrate our true divine nature, to get us back into a natural flow. Getting out of the break of the screen world. And isn't that a double-edged sword? Because it's so helpful, the internet, the technology that we have, but where's the balance? Where's the balance? So I'll close with a lovely quote from 2 Corinthians 3:17. Now the Lord is the Spirit, and where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. And so we are free. Amen.